Hello and welcome back to UI Chat from the Interface, the monthly show talking about everything Ubiquiti and networking. I'm your host Alex, and once again I'm joined by my co-host Evan McCann. Welcome, Evan.
Hey, good to be back, and we have another guest here.
We did. We thought Jesse. We had Jesse on last episode. It went really, really well. So we thought, why not get another awesome Ubiquiti creator on the show to talk about their thoughts on the company. So welcome, Chris. How you doing?
Howdy. Good to speak with you guys. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's awesome. I thought it'd be a really good idea. So yeah, we've got a lot of stuff to get through on this episode. But let's start with some of the bits and pieces that we've seen released over the last few weeks. So one of the major things that Ubiquiti has released recently is, well, it was shown off at the UWC conference back in April, I think. Time's gone very, very quick. I remember Ubiquiti sort of hinted at it. This is the Enterprise Network Video Recorder, and I'm really enjoying that Ubiquiti are taking a quite a sort of a nice introduction into Enterprise, or like a re-interest in Enterprise. And this is one of their like really, really powerful devices alongside the EFG and stuff. And this looks really, really interesting. Have you had a chance to play with this yet, or is it not out yet?
I have not. So they do send me a number of products ahead of time. This is not one that they sent me ahead of time. This is I mean, again, my sort of focus on the channel is more about prosumers and SMB. They've offered me some of their enterprise gear, and while I like going in the enterprise direction, for my particular content, I don't think the enterprise stuff is what the audience is really watching for. And I've even told them, I'm like, listen, don't send me like a $5,000 piece of gear that I'm not going to do a video on. Like that makes no sense. So yeah, I've seen it. I do have some thoughts on it. It's not out yet, right? It's just announced.
Yeah, so they've announced it. I think it's out on the 30th. There are some interesting release dates. So weirdly, they've said September 30th for the US and EU, and then UK and Canada, they just said coming soon. So I'm not sure what's happening there. So
I see it. It's on the website. So the one thing that I found to be quite interesting about this product is the additional $300 bezel that's not included. You got to pay an extra $300 for it, which I don't really mind that. I almost would have preferred. I feel like it's one of those marketing things where we wanted to get the price under a certain price point, so we separated the bezel. And if you want it, you can buy it separately for $300. And like for $300, it's cool. It looks amazing, and it gives you that little screen and all that sort of stuff. Value-wise, I'm not sure if it's really worth $300, but when you factor in the fact that this thing has 16 3.5-inch drive bays, that's going to be the bulk of your cost when you buy this device. Like if you're getting like 16 like 12 terabyte or higher drives, that's 5 figures worth of hard drives.
Yeah. Well, and it's nice that they have 10 gig uplinks, but like then you also need 10 gig infrastructure. So like the box is $2,000 and it's expensive on its own, but yeah, to fill out the hard drive bays, to have everything to support it, to add the $300 bezel, it's kind of interesting. I feel the same way about the EFG, the Enterprise Fortress Gateway, and the UXG Enterprise. Yeah. Like it's great hardware. I'm glad that they're kind of building up that end of their product stack. It's not something I'm going to buy for my home, but I'm sure there's people out there that found the UNVR Pro, which is 7 bays. I think that was their highest model before.
Yeah.
If you need more storage, spend more money.
Wasn't that one stackable?
I think you do at least 2 stackable.
Yeah. Now the Enterprise Network Video Recorder does have, it does have built-in RAID. So even if you use up all those drives, you're probably not getting all that space. But then it has the dual hot swap PSUs. That's actually pretty nice.
Well, I'm not sure how relevant. Well, not sure how. I think the stacking feature's sort of been surpassed by the Protect Vantage point now. I'm not sure how that behaves performance-wise, but that feature where you can have a UNVR in one country and another country, and you can have the GUI sort of glued together. That's quite a nice feature.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's replaced the stackable feature, but
and Vantage Point, you could have multiple locations.
Yes.
So stackable would be 2 at one site. Vantage Point, I think it's up to 10 different sites, all kind of glued into one view.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't really played with any of that. So ages ago, we used to sell surveillance systems when Unified Video, or like when Unified Video was preceding Protect.
Mm.
And we actually did pretty well in that business, but we had margins in that we could build the NVR for customers. And it was sort of a package deal where you build the NVR, you buy some cameras, and we were able to actually make some money on it. With Protect, there's no, as a business person, there's no margins in selling their surveillance solution. So we don't offer it on the website or anything like that. In fact, I don't think I've done a Protect video in quite some time.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Well, hey,
So
now
yeah,
that they have a $2,000 NVR and a $300 bezel with a touchscreen on it, that's some good content right there, isn't it?
I mean, maybe they asked me if I had any, opportunities for that product, and I really just don't.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it's just, I mean, maybe those opportunities will eventually appear. And, the bezel is a drop in the bucket compared to, like I said, the surrounding 10 gig infrastructure and the hard drives and all that. So I don't really mind that. It's just interesting to see they're kind of going that direction. It's like, it's very Apple-esque, that they're,
Yeah.
that they're having these, quite pricey add-ons.
Yeah, and just screens on rack mount gear. That's not something you commonly find, and that's for a reason, because it's usually in a data center or in a rack, and you don't typically interact with it. But that's Ubiquiti
Right.
for you.
Yeah, I think it sort of separates the folks that want that sort of whiz bang look, the sex appeal, if you will, of the product versus people who are just going to be using it more functionally.
But also, like, if it was used in a proper office environment, the place where it'd be installed, no one would ever go there. And also, it's got the lockable feature, but you'd have it in a rack that can lock anyway. So I can see kind of why they've added it as an optional, because it seems a bit pointless having it on it as standard. So,
But you could
Yeah.
view live streams directly on the rack.
Yeah.
Rather than pull out your phone, which is in your pocket, and put them there, or use a computer, you could go to the rack and view your cameras. So
Yeah.
very useful.
It would honestly, they should have put a front-facing widescreen or wide-angle camera in that thing.
That would actually be interesting, because then it's kind of like monitoring your rack, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Then you got a wide-angle lens on the front of your rack.
Well, no, hey, you could have 70 4K cameras. Just buy another 4K camera pointed at the rack that way.
That's right. I actually like their. I mean, I do like their cameras. I use them personally, right? So I do like Protect. I've got a viewport over here on the side that sort of keeps an eye on my surrounding my house all day long, and it's so invaluable. You can see when the UPS guy pulls up, you can see if the dogs are doing something in the backyard they're not supposed to be doing. I love having that capability. I do wish they'd come out with a newer viewport, or maybe like I don't know, some more options for that thing. I wish the viewport had like a little remote control where, like, for like the pan tilt zoom camera, maybe you could like actually control the camera, through the viewport. That would be super cool.
That would be cool, to be fair.
Viewport Pro Max.
Well, yeah, and we're joking. Sorry to cut you off.
That's right.
We're joking about it, but yeah, like Protect is a pretty strong offering overall. There's a ton of camera options, ton of NVR options. The software, which we'll get to soon, it's about to go to version 5. They've been adding a lot to it, so it's a great system, and I really love the local recording, which they've always stressed. So yeah, it's definitely better than a lot of security systems that you see out there that are relying on cloud connectivity or a subscription.
For sure.
But
and it's also good for if you are reselling it to your customers. The interface is quite intuitive, and it's very easy to set up and get someone hooked up to the app, and they can scroll through the footage, and it works really well in that regard. Like I said, I do use it personally. I've tried other solutions. Like I tried Blue Iris, right? I installed Blue Iris on a box and hooked up some cameras to it, but it was so convoluted. Like, it was just there was just like one of those things where it's like option overload, and there's a very fine balance between the level of options that like a professional would need versus the ease of use that you would want as like a prosumer.
Makes sense.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like the Linux desktop. It's it's there if you want to nerd out and tweak every single thing. But for most of us, we're going to use Windows or Mac OS probably.
For sure.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So just a little overview. This is a 3U NVR with as Evan alluded to, 70 cameras at 4K can be supported, or actually 210 HD cameras, which is just bananas. Dual 10 gig SFP plus ports, and there's also one 10 gig RJ45. As Chris mentioned as well, dual hot swappable power supplies. And it's $2,000 in the US and about 1,600, including VAT in the UK, and available soon. And obviously, there's that bezel accessory as well. Nice. Chris mentioned this before show, actually, pre-recording, but there's a new Flex Mini Switch, isn't there? And I think you've got one in your office, yeah?
So that did just come out. I have it actually hooked up. I just adopted it before we started talking here. And this thing's, I like it. So the Flex Mini, the original Flex Mini, if you guys remember, was really great. I think it was like $30, $29. I think they even sold it in like a 5-pack.
Yeah.
So tiny little Switch. This is the sort of successor to that previous one, where this can be powered up with PoE, or you can power it up with USB-C, and it does come with the USB-C charger, the USB-C sort of little power adapter as well, which is nice. I always like when they do include the extra power adapter. And then you can power it up with PoE, and then it gets you 4 additional 2.5 gig network ports. This one, I also did a quick look. I haven't investigated too much, but like the previous Flex Mini, it didn't have any port manager capabilities. It didn't have any like VLAN capabilities, where you basically plugged it into a port and it would just extend the untagged VLAN of whatever port you plugged it into. And I typically used to use those devices for like behind entertainment centers. That's like my favorite use for them, like where you've got an Xbox and you've got a Roku and an Apple TV and your television, and you've got just a small handful of devices that are going to be better wired than wireless. So then you got this $29 little Flex Mini Switch. You pop it back there, and everything can be wired, and it just keeps your connectivity nice and smooth, especially for like streaming video and stuff like that. So this is an extension of that. This is the next version up that's basically the same, except it has all 2.5 gigabit ports, and it's only $49, which I think is wonderful. It's a great price point, and it did show up in the port manager, so you can actually select. You can have VLANs on this thing, at least as far as what I saw in the interface. I haven't tested it, but it looks like you can.
Well, it also supports spanning tree, which was something that was missing from the Flex Mini.
Yeah,
that's good to know about the VLANs, though. I forgot.
Yep.
I forgot about that, about the Flex Mini. Yeah.
Which honestly, like for the purpose of this Switch, it's pretty rare that you would be using VLANs on it anyways. I don't know. I don't know everyone's use case, but like I've never really found that I needed VLANs on it. I kind of I put it in my IoT network because I was connecting a bunch of IoT devices, for television and the Xbox and PlayStation and stuff, right? So I never really had a problem with that aspect of it, but at 2.5 gigabit, there's probably different use cases for this one. This is overkill for behind a television, right? This is I would say not necessary for that use case. But it would be cool if you had like in an organization a 2.5 gig uplink, and then maybe like connect it out to like a set of 4 cubicles of people that are doing, some more like heavy file transfers or something like that. Then you would get, and then you get some benefit of that versus gigabit. I'll tell you, we talked a little bit about 10 gigabit earlier. I recently went through the process of upgrading my home network here to a 10 gigabit core, specifically for video editing and copying things to and from a Synology NAS that's 10 gig connected. And man, it's awesome. Like I love it. I could transfer stuff. It's like 800 or 900 megabytes per second across that 10 gig link.
Wow.
And it's phenomenal. It was a night and day difference. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, these devices would traditionally be like the end of a network, so like the VLAN stuff doesn't really matter that much. But yeah, it's interesting to see that this new one's got that sort of capability now, so it definitely does open it up to more use cases. What those use cases are outside of offices, I'm not sure, but yeah, it's good to see.
And guess what? Sold out immediately, right? Yeah. So it's like definitely going to be a popular Switch. It was, I think it released. It was either yesterday or the day before, and I checked just before we recorded here, and it's gone. You can't get them right now.
Oh no.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder if they're going to do the same thing with the regular Flex, the non-mini. That one's $99, and I typically think of it more for like outdoor or in your attic type of
Yep.
installations. Really useful for like if you're running one network cable out for a couple cameras or a couple access points, those kind of setups. So I would hope that we'll see a 2.5 gig version of the Flex, and that'll probably be 130 or something like that.
Yeah, it's a cool little switch. I like the Flex. I have one actually on the exterior of my house. It powers up 2 cameras, one side of the unified building to building bridge. And is that it? There might be something else in there too. I don't know, but I actually just did a video. I'll do a quick plug for my TikTok. I started on TikTok just over 2 years ago, and I've been doing a lot more content in that short format that doesn't end up on YouTube. So if you guys are following on YouTube only, there are some additional videos that I'm putting out on TikTok. Actually, most of the stuff I'm doing now is like these short form videos because I think it's fun. And I just did a video a couple weeks ago where in my garage I had the USW Lite 16 PoE. Okay, and that device has a 45 watt PoE budget, which you can max that out. It's got 8 PoE ports, 45 watt budget, and I had the floodlight. I had 3 cameras. I had that Flex. I had 4 cameras because I have an AI 360 in my garage. And it was just like, plus I think 2 access points, and it was like I kept noticing weird like dropouts in my network and like connectivity issues, especially when I was like downstairs. And come to find out that it was just so out of power from that 45 watt PoE budget that my downstairs in-wall access point just kept power cycling over and over and over.
Oh no!
Oh boy.
And so I finally got that upgraded. I bought the probably my favorite new Switch that they've come out in a long time, the Switch Ultra, right? So it's 8 ports only, which is fine. I didn't need all 16 ports on that other thing. So I downgraded the amount of ports, but I got the 210 watt variant. So it's got 210 watts of PoE across 8 ports instead of 45 watts across 8 ports. And that has sorted those issues. they're like, everything's perfectly fine now.
Yeah, that switch is really good. I like that one.
Yeah,
really, really flexible.
But I documented that whole process on TikTok. So it's weird just getting into like content creation world.
Yeah.
TikTok will only allow you to monetize videos that are greater than 60 seconds. Right. And YouTube doesn't allow shorts greater than 60 seconds. So when you make a short video, you have to say, okay, am I going to do this less than 60 seconds? And so I can update it, upload it to both platforms, or do I just go for longer and who cares? So I always just kind of go for longer, or I try to shoot for like just over 60 seconds, and then I can clip out a little bit and then upload a different version to shorts. It's a little bit shorter, but it's so funny the way that they do that. I guarantee you it's a conscious decision that TikTok made to only monetize greater than 60 seconds because now people will put their stuff on there and not worry about YouTube shorts. So
that's true. Yeah, well, that's what you're
doing.
The
inside baseball of content uploading.
There you go.
I'll have to sign up for TikTok now. I've managed to avoid it. I'm afraid of getting sucked in.
I avoided it for a long time. In fact, I still don't have it on my daily driver smartphone. I have a separate phone entirely where I've got Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, and I keep those. Like, doesn't have any of my personal accounts connected to it, just those.
Yeah.
It's
probably for the best.
Yeah.
Just out of an abundance of caution. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. That's pretty much all the hardware we've got. It's only two new devices, really. And before we move on to the software, thanks everyone who has been listening or watching the UI Chat podcast. If you can leave us a review in your podcast app of choice, or leave us some feedback in the comments on YouTube, that would really help us out. Right. Probably the biggest news in terms of software, well, one of the biggest news items, has been Protect 5.0, specifically 5.0.33, which I believe went to GA today because I got a notification on my UMVR today. And this is huge because this adds support for adopting third-party cameras with, I'm going to say I can't remember what you guys said, ONVIF or ONVIF?
ONVIF is what I say. Yeah, I don't know if that's what you actually call it, but that's what I call it.
No idea. And this is massive because, like, I never would have thought Ubiquiti would add support for third-party cameras, but here we are. So
Yeah.
Well, Chris, since you mentioned it, back in the unified video days before Protect, was ONVIF a feature?
No, no, they've
Okay.
always been fully proprietary with their cameras, um, which so they used to be not proprietary with the hardware, right? So unified video,
Mhm.
you had the capability to install that in, I think it was in Linux or in Windows. You could build your own server and install it onto that server. And then when they made the shift to Protect, they specifically end of life Unify Video and switched to Protect because they now went fully proprietary on the hardware, which, as a consumer, I didn't like as much because I was selling those surveillance systems, and I always like the ability to install stuff on my own hardware without having to buy into a specific, ecosystem of products. But from Ubiquiti's point of view, I can imagine the amount of support tickets that they were receiving on something not working with Unify Video drop dramatically when they can
mm,
control the entire hardware and software sort of bundle, if you will. So I like that they're, and then ONVIF is a standard, right? So cameras are either compatible or not, just much like SIP in voice over IP, right? Your device is either compatible with that or not. So it's less of a burden on their support team, I feel. Um,
mm.
but it does make me wonder if, like, maybe they're going to open up other stuff to standards, such as SIP on Unified Talk. Like, we still don't have the ability to add third-party phones to their talk platform,
Mm.
which, that might be something that would be pretty cool to explore in the future.
I'd also imagine, like you mentioned, like supporting third-party servers is one thing because they can be definitely built wrong. I mean, and people won't realize what they've done, but supporting extra cameras to the untrained eye might seem less of a problem.
Yeah.
They just have to get
Well,
the
because if you're
protect.
if you're if
Yeah,
you're directly supporting a third-party camera, not something that uses the ONVIF standard, like if they decided, like, oh, now we work with Axis cameras or whatever, you are now responsible for keeping up in your own development with their development in terms of new firmware for the cameras and new
yeah.
features and things like that, right? So it puts a huge burden on the company. Now, I haven't tried Protect 5 and the ONVIF stuff. Um, I don't know what differences there are between an ONVIF connected camera and a proprietary Ubiquiti camera. Like, I assume, like for example, the detection of dogs and people in cars, right? The AI stuff that they tout for some of their cameras. Does that work if you have an ONVIF camera that's capable of doing that? I would guess no, but again, I haven't tried it.
So
Um,
yeah, my colleague at Hostify, he one of the guys has tried it. So third-party cameras don't have any detection support. It's
so it's
just live
basically
streaming.
just the feed of the camera.
Yeah, live streaming and recording. That's all it
Yeah.
does. There's
And
no
like
motion detection.
if you had a third party camera that had pan tilt zoom capabilities, is that something that you could control
Uh,
through Protect? Again,
yeah,
these are the things that, like, I would guess probably not, but I haven't tested it myself.
yeah. It is interesting. I don't know if there is even because I know with the cameras that are just motion detection, like the G3 ones and also the AI ones, all that like processing stuff is done on the cameras directly. So I don't know if the OnVIF protocol even supports offloading that and having the NVR do all that work for you. Not even I've got no idea to be honest. But it's
Yeah, I don't
definitely
know. I
interesting.
don't know either. But
Yeah.
you'd think that if you'd think that it would maybe be capable of doing that if the software was smart enough. Like, if the software is smart enough to analyze the frames of a video feed and it notices or detects that a dog is walking by the
Mm,
camera, you'd think that the software might be smart enough to do that. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, it's typically a camera
mm.
based function. That's why it's not available on all their cameras.
Yes. Yeah. I guess also it's like a business thing for them as well. Like they obviously are in the business of making selling hardware, and selling the MVR is one thing, and you might be lured into buying their own cameras because they have more features and whatever. So like they've obviously won some brownie points with supporting this feature, and it gets people's.
Sure.
Like I heard one argument for like if you're upgrading someone's installation at a business and they really do not have the budget yet to upgrade their cameras, they can do it over time and still get some functionality there, which is another.
Yeah.
It's like a stepping stone to getting a whole installation, because they can be quite expensive sometimes.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like in any, I mean, just like the UNVR, right, or the NVR systems, the biggest expense of that system is the hard drives that go into that product. With a camera system, the biggest expense are how many cameras do you need and what quality of camera, right? So it can add up real quick.
Yeah, and it makes sense because like the Enterprise NVR that we just looked at, 74K cameras or 200 plus HD cameras. If you already have those cameras, and you don't want to replace them, I think that's funny timing that this was released. I mean, they probably had the ability to do this before, but now with their push to enterprise and trying to get those bigger installs, they probably got a lot of feedback saying, "Hey, I don't want to have to replace my cameras. I just got them recently. They're good cameras. Let me use them with your hardware."
Especially if they're cameras that are just a static view of something, and they don't have those extra features anyways. I think it's a really good move. Like I said, I'd like to see them open up that level of non-proprietariness to other products as well.
Yeah, and we also gained some extra support for archiving footage. So a while back they added support for Google Drive, and now they've added support for Dropbox, and that totals it up to 4 different services now. So we've got OneDrive, Google Drive, Dropbox, but also SMB NAS devices as well. So I guess that means Synology as well. So that's really good.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I'm happy about the new features they have coming out. Like I'm perfectly fine with the one that I have. Like for home use, I think a UNVR is just absolutely perfect. Like and even for SMB, I mean, you don't really need, like if you have a company that needs upwards of 20 cameras, that UNVR is great.
Yeah.
And then one final little feature with Protect 5 was you can now pair chimes with multiple doorbells. As I believe, I can't remember, Evan, I think there was an update recently where you could pair multiple doorbells with one chime. Was that what?
Well, no,
multiple chimes with one doorbell.
So the chime is the little speaker that'll play a chime when someone hits the doorbell. But now you could have one chime with multiple doorbells. I think what happened before was you could do multiple doorbells on one controller, the access controller possibly. There was something like that, but
I think it was multiple chimes with one doorbell.
I don't know why you'd want, or I guess if you're trying to cover a big area. Yeah. Okay, so it's the same thing in the other direction, I guess now.
It's funny. I have the chime. I use it. It's a little hit and miss. So like every once in a while it'll just stop working. You have to unplug it and plug it back in. It kind of reconnects to Protect. Hopefully they'll iron some of those bugs out. But I actually enjoy it because I have it up here in my office. So like if UPS shows up at the door and I don't happen to notice, I get that that chime up here, which is nice. It'd be cool if you could do custom chimes. I'm not sure if they've added that yet. Or if you could do different chimes based on which doorbell was pressed. Like you got a front door, back door, make it a different chime per doorbell.
I think they added custom GIFs on the little screen for the doorbells. I think they did add like custom audio for the chimes as well. Because I know someone was mentioning using that for like Halloween, like have like a little spooky doorbell noise instead of just a normal ding dong. But
yes,
that'd be cool.
Was actually in the last episode we recorded. There was Protect Chime 1714 adds custom chime sounds. So yeah.
Okay.
I
I'll
already forgot.
have to look into that. Wonderful.
Nice.
That's great. The things you could do with that, right?
Oh yeah.
That'd be quite good fun.
I saw a thing that was, I don't know if it was just some social media thing I saw that like is a little just USB stick that you can plug into any sort of USB port, and it just makes like a little like cricket sound at a random interval between like 5 and 10 minutes or something. And so you can just go over to someone's house or someone's business and plug it into any USB port, and it just like makes a cricket noise every so often, driving people crazy.
Oh, that's evil.
I was like, that's fun. I like that.
Cool. We also had Unify Network 8.4.6.2. This is a very minor update. This is now, as of today, it's GA. This just had improved DNS Shield validation. So that's DNS Shield is that feature where it's like encrypted DNS, isn't it? It's DOH, I believe. So yeah, that's good. Nice little update.
Yep. I
And then
just updated to it. It's 8.4.62, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I see it. So it's a bunch of bug fixes, and then improved custom DNS Shield server validation. The interesting thing, so I upgraded when I did that 10 gig update. I upgraded the core of my network to the UDM Pro Max, which is admittedly overkill for my network, but I had one, right? So I was like, well, I'll use this device. The one thing, what was it? There was one thing that I was kind of like not super happy about, because I went from the core of my network being an edge router, which it has been for ages, to now going to a full UniFi stack. And as part of that, I switched over my Pi holes. So the stuff that my previous DNS servers were Pi holes that work really, really well. If you guys, I don't know how much experience you guys have with Pi hole, but those things work phenomenally well. And I switched over to Ubiquiti's sort of ad blocking. Like they have some level of ad blocking. I forget what it's called. I'm looking around the interface right now, but I'm not finding it right off
I think
the
it's just
bat.
ad blocker, to be honest.
Is it under security?
Yeah.
I don't see where I'm even seeing it. Or is it under networks? It might be on the networks. Anyways, I was not super happy with their ad blockers. Now, I haven't gone back to Pi-hole yet, but their ad blockers were mostly just like an on and off with no ability to see what it was blocking, no ability to customize it. I think they've added this in now, but at the time that I upgraded, there was no ability to whitelist any sites. Like, so for example, as a content creator, I have a membership to a number of affiliate programs, and a lot of those affiliate programs are blocked by ad blockers, right? So when I needed to log into an affiliate program to copy the link I need or whatever, I was not able to log in, and I would basically have to disable the ad blocking entirely in order to get in there. So it was kind of interesting, but that I feel like they improved as well, although I'm not fine. Oh, here it is, ad blocking.
Yeah, it's under security. And you're right. It is, it is per network. So you could do per network, but, I think, don't quote me on this, they did add some like limited whitelisting options. But yeah, Pi-holes will always do more and better and show you statistics. And there's a lot of stuff you can do with a Pi-hole that you can't with just the simple built-in option, but it's probably good enough for most people.
Yeah. So okay, so here it is. So you can pick. So what I ended up doing is I put the ad blocking on my guest network as well as my IoT network, but I left it off of my sort of main LAN, just because it was not working the way that I wanted it to. And then DNS Shield, as I hover over it, it says ensures privacy and security of DNS traffic by encrypting it using DNS over HTTPS, also known as DOH. Use one of the predefined DOH servers or manually add a custom server. So if I click custom, it gives me server name, enter the name of the custom DOH server. This can include the server and ID. And then it says DNS stamp, and it's an SDNS link, SDNS:// Enter the DNS stamp URL obtained from your DOH provider or use a stamp calculator. Oh, interesting. I really don't know much about this at all. I'm going to have to look into how all that works.
Well, yeah, and that option's kind of new, but there's nothing stopping you from, on your network setting your own internal custom DNS server, or I think you can also set it on your WAN.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that needs to the ad blocking, I think, just needs to be fleshed out a little bit better. Like I said, if they had the ability to, like Pi-hole, allow the community to curate specific lists of domains to be blocked, and then you could add one or more of those lists that the ad blocker would, read in and then, update occasionally, that would be a huge feature, and it would compete directly with something like a Pi-hole or like AdGuard Home, those types of services.
Yeah, I can only think they've added it at like a basic level, and then over time it'll just get more flushed out, I'd imagine.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so.
Cool. Evan, do you want to run us through this brand new, quite large update for Unify Networks? It's got 8.5.1 now, so it's quite a big one.
Sorry, real
Go
quickly
on.
before you do that, one
Yeah.
more thought on the ad blocking, and this is something that I just think is important for people to know.
Okay.
If you're using ad blocking and DNS Shield, you got to do one or the other.
Oh,
The
really?
ad blocking does not work if you're using DNS over HTTPS. They have a note about that in here, but it was kind of interesting that, like, of course, you're right. DNS over HTTPS
Oh,
is
yeah.
encrypted DNS requests, right? So the ad blocker is not going to be able to see what you're requesting. So if you've got the DNS Shield on, ad blocking, even if you've set ad blocking up in Unify, it doesn't actually do anything.
I wonder if HTTPS. Sorry, I wonder if DNS over HTTPS also blocks third-party ad blockers in Chrome or something.
I think it does, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because like I said, that's the whole point of it. Is it's it's encrypting your DNS requests.
Huh.
Right,
Yeah.
and it also prevents your ISP from looking into your traffic or anything local. Like, I guess that's how ad blocking works. It'll look at the requests and, not answer the ones that go for ads. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was a minor update for 8.4. 8.4 has been out for a while. That was just a little bug fix release. But the bigger news was 8.5. We got 2 different EA versions, and there's a ton of stuff. Definitely enough to justify the +1 on the minor version there. So the big highlight features are the improved dashboard. You have customizable widgets that show you a bunch of different information like device and client counts, network health, most active clients, those kind of things. I think that's something that they promised for a while, like a customizable dashboard. So it's good to finally see that. I haven't played around with it too much. I do have it running because I live dangerously and run the EA software. Don't do as I do, but it did look nice. And they do have a lot of nice stuff on the new dashboard there. But the meat is probably the other features. So they added NetFlow. And they also added log exporting to SIEM servers like Splunk, Microsoft Sentinel, IBM QRadar, which is definitely a very enterprisey feature. So I know NetFlow for, you can use it for a bunch of different ways, but I think of it as like bandwidth monitoring, especially in like a WISP or an ISP network. If you have a bunch of customers and you want to measure how much data they're using, that's kind of one use case for NetFlow. It's kind of an industry standard way to monitor networks. They also added packet capture for gateways. Previously, they had packet capture just on the access point. Now you can do it on the gateway itself. I forget the status of switches. I think they're either about to add that or already have added packet capture for like switch ports as well. It does require firmware 4.1 on the cloud gateway or UXG, which we haven't seen yet, so upcoming. And they did mention it's not supported on the Express and the UXG Lite, so the 2 smallest options for cloud gateways and gateways do not get that because they don't have enough power for it.
Makes sense.
And yeah, the list goes on. They have OpenVPN for policy-based routing on site-to-site VPNs, multiple CA certs for Radius TLS profiles. They added a WPA2, WPA3 enterprise mode, egress rate limit for gateways, and stats for the AP analyzer. And then 8.5.5 added a few more things. So I'm not sure exactly when this is going GA, but we've already had 2 different EA versions of this. So probably in the next few weeks, we'll start to see this stuff 8.5 go GA. But it's a ton. And yeah, it's definitely more and more enterprise features for sure.
Yeah. The interesting one that I thought from 8.5.5, just reading over the notes here, added notice for sites with legacy USG devices. So the old square white USG router, that you will now get a notice that says configuration changes will not be possible on the next version of Unify Network. So anyone out there that's running that older 3-port USG, it was called the USG 3 for a while. Now I think it's just called the USG. Now's the time to think about upgrading because it's the support for that is going bye-bye.
I wonder if that includes the USG 4 as well.
It does.
It does. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a slow motion thing. I remember it was kind of news when they added it to their, I think, either vintage or legacy distinction. I think that means basically software support is at an end or coming to an end. And yeah, this was big. So this is an 8.5.5. It says configuration changes will not be possible on the next version. So does that mean 8.6? Is 8.5 going to be the last one, or is 8.4 the last
Unclear.
one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unclear. I mean, it's, I'm sure they will announce that when it does happen. But yeah, if you've been thinking about upgrading, I would upgrade. And here's a good question: if someone has the old white square USG, what would you guys recommend is the next logical upgrade?
UXG Lite, I'd have thought. Makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the most straightforward one-for-one replacement would be a UXG model. So the UXG Lite, UXG Max, UXG Pro, or Enterprise, any of those are just firewalls or just routers, just gateways. If you have a self-hosted network or a cloud key, that's kind of your one-for-one replacement. You can also consider any of their cloud consoles, but that would involve changing where your network is hosted. But yeah, I mean, when the Dream Machine and Dream Machine Pro originally came out, a lot of people were really grumpy about the controller and the gateway being tied together. Now that it's been a couple years and we have 4 different options of just gateways,
Yep.
I think it's the right time to kind of sunset the very old and very underpowered USG.
I would say certainly if you're on the Generation 1 cloud key, if you're going to do an upgrade, I would probably ditch the Generation 1 cloud key as well as the USG and go for one of the new unified cloud gateways, either the Max or just the standard one, just to get that sort of combined unify experience.
Well, I think
I'd almost say the same thing if you're on the Gen 2 cloud keys.
Yeah.
Like either of the Gen 2 cloud keys. At this point, I feel like having a separate controller is just another piece of hardware that can fail. People will make the opposite argument, though, that having them combined means, if that one thing fails, you lose everything. So, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think the Gen 1 cloud key, the white one, I believe that was abandoned with 7.3 or 7.4.
Yeah.
It's been maybe a year or two since that's been supported. So yeah, if you're still running one of those with a USG, that's 2 pieces of hardware. You should definitely.
I just recently went so out here where I live, they have communities for unhoused people, trying to get them back rehabilitated. They have like a whole group of like tiny homes basically with like a central meeting area, and it's all not for profit and whatnot. And I reached out to one of them just to see like if they needed anything. I've got a ton of extra hardware here. Like, do you guys need access points? Do you need whatever? And I went down there to visit the site, and he's like, yeah, here's my network. And he opens up the cabinet, and it was that square white USG with a Generation 1 cloud key. And I was like, ooh, as a Unify guy, I'm like, oh, how is that thing still running? But they're still working on it. And he's like, yeah, I've been thinking about upgrading. I'm like, well, listen, I'm a big fan of if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? But if you get to the point where you're going to upgrade it, call me. I've got plenty of routers, with the unified gateway all sort of combined. I can just give you one. I'll come down and install it, whatever you need. So yeah, that pains me to see that when he opened up that cabinet.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, that's the flip side is, unfortunately for a lot of people, the USG and even the Gen 1 cloud key is fine. It's probably been running uninterrupted, without issue for years. And besides, the software support and, the security vulnerabilities and all of those things they'll pile up over time. I mean, there's probably nothing wrong with a lot of that hardware. It's just, it's old in technical terms, but sometimes that's more than enough.
Yeah. And it's still, did you guys know that, I found out about this, so I work with the ITDRC. They're a not-for-profit as well, and they get a lot of Cisco Meraki equipment. Luckily, they get all of theirs donated, and they don't have to pay for the license fees or anything. But in working with them, I found out, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but when those products are end of life, they no longer work, period. Like, even if the hardware is still good, when the license expires, you can now no longer use that device. And they don't have any way to like go into a non-license mode where now you can at least still use the hardware or donate it to a not-for-profit or something so that they can make use of it. And like, I was like, man, that's just such a crazy business model. And the amount of e-waste that they create doing that is just insane.
Huh. I did not know that.
And yeah, ITDRC, I've interacted with them a little bit. Great organization, great people. They were really helpful for us as a WISP back a couple years ago when I worked there. So highly recommend checking out ITDRC if you feel like doing some volunteering.
Yeah, they're a great organization. In fact, I just got an email yesterday where there's a hurricane that's about to hit Florida. And so they were like putting out the call for volunteers, like who's going to be able to make it to Florida because they know they're like in advance of the hurricane, they're anticipating like they're staging all their vehicles like relatively close. Like they'll go park in like South Carolina or something and like get everything ready to just zip down and to wherever they're needed. So they're an awesome organization.
Yeah, and you did a video on it. I think it maybe 2 years ago now. That was
Yeah,
really, really good.
that was also in Florida. That was
Oh
Hurricane
wow.
Ian, which like it's just so funny because I don't like traveling to Florida personally. Like it seems like every tech conference in the world is in Florida, and like I'm being on the West Coast, flying east with the time zone changes and stuff is just always a pain in the butt. I am going to Ubiquiti World Conference though,
Oh nice.
so like I'm looking forward to it. I'm just not looking forward to traveling. And I was very like on the fence about it when I heard it was in Miami, especially considering it's in Miami during the height of hurricane season. I was like, that maybe I don't want to travel to Florida for that, but I'm going.
Fair enough. How long's the flight time from California over to Florida?
It's about 5 to 6 hours if you have a direct flight. I don't have a direct flight. I got to go
Okay.
through Seattle or whatever to get there, but Denver sometimes. Usually this stops in Denver. But so it'll probably be it'll be 8 hours of travel. But you know, by the time when you're going east, you're losing hours, right? And so it's you can't just I can't get there in one day, spend one night, and then come back that next day. It's just not possible.
Fair enough.
Have it in Vegas. Vegas is the spot, right? Everyone can get to Vegas real easily. Flights are always super cheap to Vegas. You know, like do it in Vegas next time. Next time.
Yeah, hey, or Seattle, make it local for you.
Are either of you guys going?
No, I'm not going. I think Riley Chase is going from obviously Hostify. I think he's
is he?
going.
Oh, wonderful. I've never met
believe so.
Riley IRL, so that'll be cool.
Yeah, I believe he's going. I'm not going. I went to the London one April time, March time. Again, this 2024 has gone super fast. Yeah, I'm hoping they'll do some more internationally at some point. But yeah, it looks really good. So hope you guys have a good time.
Yeah.
So. Cool. Yeah, there were some other features in 8.5.5. There was neighbors at no SPF overview as well, and Next AI has also been renamed. I thought that was quite a cool brand, to be honest, but they've just renamed it to Critical.
They'll probably rename it again, so don't get too used to Critical or whatever that means.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a couple other software updates. I mean, those were definitely the big ones. The one thing I thought was interesting to call out was Access Point 6.7.6. That's a EA release right now. It adds packet capture support for the older AC, HD, and U6 APs.
Oh, that's cool.
But I did just like the USG won't be supported. This was a really interesting thing to read. So 6.7.6 introduces a significant improvement aimed at eliminating client connectivity disruption during the management of wireless networks. Whether adding, deleting, editing, or pausing wireless networks, clients will now experience uninterrupted connectivity. So this has been the way Unify has worked for as long as I've been aware of Unify.
Yeah.
When you make a configuration change and you trigger that provision to an access point, people on the wireless network will, if they're on a video call, they might have a few seconds of interruption, or they might get kicked off and have to rejoin. I didn't see it on it seems like this is just the older devices. I would assume they're going to be doing the same for the U7 and all the other U6 APs. And this will probably be a feature of all of them soon. But that was just like, I didn't think that Unify was going to be able to do that, or I'm not sure exactly the details there. That was all they said. But yeah, I thought, that's an interesting change there.
Maybe they've changed the software stack somehow to make it like keep the SSIDs running while it changes some other bits and pieces on it. I mean, I'm not a software engineer, so I've got literally no idea. But
right, because I think what happens is when you provision the AP, it has to bring the wireless interface down and then bring it back up to apply that configuration change. So it seems like they either found a creative way around that or changed the way that works. So it's EA right now and only for some of the AP models, but I'm assuming it'll be everywhere eventually.
That's awesome.
I wonder if there's going to be different things that you change that are sort of lighter on the access point, and some things that are heavier on the access point that does require the wireless to be, restarted. You think about like Windows, like you do an update, sometimes you have to reboot, sometimes you don't. Maybe it's something like that.
Yeah, probably. But they did. Yeah, they said adding, deleting, editing, or pausing. Oh, excuse me, pausing. But yeah, there probably are going to be changes that will still trigger that provision and have your brief interruption. But more details to come, I would assume.
Yeah, interesting. That's always good though, because it can be a pain. Like you take the Wi-Fi down, and someone else in the house goes, "Hey, the Wi-Fi's down," and then
yes,
you got to explain.
Yeah, believe me, my son is the sort of the canary in the coal mine for that one, because he'll be playing Fortnite or something, and I'll be making a change, and he'll be like, "Dad, is the wireless down?" It's like, "Yes, I'm doing something. Give me a second."
Awesome. And yeah, it's been a running topic every time we've recorded the last few months. It's Site Manager. It's just an update it's like software updates for our website. It's just quite funny, but they've got a new version of Site Manager, so it's version 4 now. And they seem to be making some really, really nice changes to this, like the unify.ui.com, like the Unify Site Manager they call it. But there's some, like we had Protect Vantage Point. We've had some nice improvements to the way admins are now added and stuff, and also the ISP viewer recently as well. But there seems to be some nice updates again to this website. So you've made some notes here, Evan, on what they've added, but it says added control plane, and I've seen this already on the devices. They've changed how the updates are kind of work on the cloud cloud consoles. It's like bits like that.
Well, yeah, it seems like it's mostly just renaming OS settings. So if you have like a Cloud Gateway Ultra or one of the cloud gateways and you access it through unify.ui.com, instead of settings, you'll see control plane. So that seems to be mostly just a renaming. The cooler thing to me is you can group consoles. So if you have, for example, a Cloud Key Gen 2 and an NVR or multiple devices in one site, you can group them together in the portal now. Whether no matter which application they're running, you can kind of group them by site. And they also
that's interesting.
They also increased SiteMagic VPN limit to 20 sites now.
Oh wow!
I haven't played with SiteMagic. I've considered doing a video on it just to like kind of test it out and play around with it, but I have not actually. I haven't used it in production with any customers yet.
It's, from my understanding, it's basically just a button click. I think it uses OSPF routing, and I forget what VPN protocol. I think it might be WireGuard. But it's just it's a really easy automatic site to site VPN. It's really nice, yeah, especially if you do have multiple locations with cloud gateways. Now you can have up to 20 of them.
Yeah, it's funny. As we're talking here, I'm trying this. I did not know you could group sites anymore before, so I'm actually trying it right now. Let's see, add. I just added a bunch. So I have a cloud-hosted controller, and it did bug me that all of the sites now showed separately from that cloud-hosted controller. So I just did okay. So if you do all sites, they still all show, but then you can create a group, and it will only show you the sites in that group. Man, I wish it could be like. Yeah, it needs a couple more tweaks, I think.
So I think the one everyone was on about is to do with cloud, not cloud hosted servers, but cloud consoles. So like if you had a Dream Machine at your house and a UNVR at your house, you could merge them together and they sort of become one device virtually, but not logistically. So
yeah, the features.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that's the case. In fact, here, I'll try it right now. Because I've got the Pro Max and I've got the UNVR, the standard UNVR. All right, so let's see. I'm going to call this Sherwood Home.
And yeah, the feature is called co-located consoles.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, so that would be like.
Is that different? Is that different than the grouping then?
I'm not sure. I can't see your screen, but yeah, I think it might be two different features. So there's ways to group sites, and I think this is
like tags.
Yeah, this would be multiple consoles at one location and kind of putting them all together.
Yeah, that's different. That must be something different because that's not what I'm seeing here.
Ah, fair enough.
Well, hey,
the group allows you to kind of just filter down. Like if I was if I was the network admin for Buffalo Wild Wings, right, or something, and I could like put all of their stuff in one group and then select that group, it only shows me the devices in that group.
Yeah.
But I don't see any combining features. What did you say the combining feature was called?
Co-located consoles, all camel cased as they tend to do.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
Nice.
Yeah. But hey, relevant. They did add site support for Cloud Keys and VRs, and they mentioned network servers, which I assume means self-hosted installs. So now you can pay their I forget the pricing. It's very expensive, especially if you want weekend support. But they do have site support available for things besides just cloud gateways. So Chris, if you need some help with your co-located consoles, there you go. Just activate site support and they will help out.
If I needed help with my cloud hosted consoles, I'm going to go to Rogue Support. That is the appropriate place to get support.
Nice.
I am a businessman after all. I got to toss in the plug, of course.
Yeah. I set you up for that. So
sponsorship segments on the podcast.
You just got to show me your metrics. We'll see. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, so this was Site Manager 4, but there was also, I'm not sure if this is beta or not, but it's 4.1.5 as well. Very minor thing, says add support for multiple vantage points. Not sure how that fits in.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Vantage points, it's a really cool feature. I guess you were limited to one before. I guess this is new that you can have more than one.
Oh, I see now. I read that wrong. So yeah, you can add multiple servers to one vantage point. Yeah, you could have. Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, if you have multiple locations or multiple groups of cameras you want to make.
Nice.
That is kind of nice. I mean, if I were at a point where, so for example, I have the. Oh, you know what's interesting? Hang on a second. I'm looking at this. Oh, it only works with UNVRs. Well, hang on a second. Oh, I see. It only works where you have Protect installed. Because I was going to say, I've got that UDM Pro Max and I've got a UNVR. I don't use the Pro Max for Unify Protect at all. I don't even have it installed, which is why it's not showing up in here. But if I were getting to a point where I was running out of camera capacity in the UNVR, I could potentially add some more cameras to that UDM Pro Max that has the RAID 1, set of hard drives. And then sort of expand it a little bit better that way through Vantage Point. I can see that being an interesting use case.
I never thought about that. That's quite an interesting use case, yeah.
Yes, it's quite a enterprisey feature.
Yeah, it's cool.
Nice. We did mention the Switch Ultra earlier briefly, but that now has loop protection support as of 1.2.3, version 1.2.3.
Right, so that's good. I'm pretty sure because the Ultra doesn't support spanning tree, this is Ubiquiti's kind of proprietary, it does basically the same thing where if you have a loop in your network, this will prevent it from being an issue.
Interesting.
Have you guys ever done that accidentally for a client?
Yes. Unfortunately, I've dealt with, hey, wait, why is the network being weird? What cable did you plug into where? Yeah, it's a fun issue.
Oh, actually,
I one time had a dorm, the head of a dorm call me. Was it a dorm or a fraternity? Fraternity. So I went down to the college and I met with them, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't know. Nothing's working. Nothing's been working for like a week." And I started like tracing cables, and like I found that like the WAN side of their firewall was just plugged into a switch and not in the internet connection, and like just weird stuff all over the place. And I'm like, how is this ever working? I'm like, what happened here? And he's like, oh, we were having some, internet troubles, and one of our buddies thought he could fix it, and he was a little drunk, and he just came over here, and he was just pulling cables and plugging them in different places. I was like, okay, that's what it looks like happened. So yes, and it took me about half an hour. I got them all sorted out, and they were very happy about it.
Wow.
I clicked on the release notes for that Switch Ultra update, and Glenn replied to someone. He said, "We haven't mentioned STP support, but we are working on it. In addition to loop protection for the Switch Ultra," he said, "There's no promises or ETAs on this, so it's interesting to know that they are working on spanning tree support for the Switch Ultra, even though it is like an entry level device, somewhat." So,
I like the Switch Ultra. That's, I think,
mhm.
probably my new favorite Switch right now. It's I like that it's versatile enough to have different levels of PoE capability.
Oh yeah,
Um, or you could just have it PoE powered and that's it. I mean, I think
yep.
that's just super cool.
My favorite use case for it is a way to power some Protect cameras up in a little location, because it's the only Switch that's of a good price that you can have all 8 ports are PoE. Otherwise, you've got
Yeah.
to make do with the other switches. Yeah. I
Yeah,
haven't used this
and
device yet, but it's very similar to the Edge Power. But the UISP Power now has a local web GUI, and this is sort of continuing the trend of these USP devices that were initially cloud first and are now moving away from that and becoming more locally supported as features go on. But this is, again, the GUI to me looks very similar to the Edge Power devices, but this is good. So yeah,
well, yeah, and we're definitely down in the dregs of these
we
software
are.
updates. The last one to mention is the Edge. There's a couple minor bug fixes for old devices. So the Edge switch got a bug fix release. It's 1.10.4, which was only notable because it's like, oh hey, they are still kind of semi-actively updating that. And the same with Air Max M and Air Max AC. Those got a couple bug fix releases. So those software updates for old devices are kind of fun to see.
They are.
It's always good to see them doing that, but not really anything notable in those.
We've got a fairly decent size point to multi-point deployment coming up. There's a different YouTube channel called Ghost Town Living. It's a guy who like bought a ghost town, like just at the start of COVID, he bought a ghost town like up in the hills above like Death Valley, California. And we went down there to check out his site. He's like his YouTube channel's huge. He's got like 1.7 million subscribers, so great content.
Oof.
And so we went down there just to like scope it out, and we're going to be back there mid-October to do a full, like we're basically doing an entire wireless network for an 1800s era ghost town. So that's going to be a super fun deployment. So make sure you guys like and subscribe when that one comes out.
That's
Awesome.
pretty much it for this sort of topic for news items. At the end of the show, we're going to just look at what we've been working on, each of us. So, Evan, what have you been working on since we last recorded? You got anything interesting?
Well, yeah, you called me out last time. You're like, you haven't done anything. So yeah,
It was a joke.
I know, but it was accurate. I definitely have. I've struggled to be super productive writing. Just other things have gotten in the way.
Yes,
But I did take the time to update my advanced Wi-Fi settings explained for 8.4. So I think it had been like a year. So some of the interface elements changed, and some of the advice was out of date. So that's updated and out there for you.
Yeah, it's really helpful having that there, because Ubiquiti don't have like a tooltip on each item. So you're like, what does this do again? And then your guide is basically like the Wi-Fi settings encyclopedia sometimes. So
Yes, I try to be annoyingly detailed, and that post has gotten to be ridiculously long. So
yeah,
apologies, but hopefully it's a good reference. But
right. We've got some news as well. So we got some merch for the podcast.
Hey, look at that.
Cool.
All right.
So
Where's yours, Evan?
it is shipping. I ordered it when he told me that I didn't know this was happening beforehand until it went live, and I bought one immediately, and I think it'll be here probably next week.
Yeah.
All right.
So we got some merch. So store.theinterface.uk, and there's some merch for the other podcasts as well. So yeah, if you want to rep the podcast, you can do. So thanks.
Yeah.
And Chris, what have you been working on that you want to let people know about? So you've mentioned some little drips of videos that you've got coming soon throughout the episode, but what have you got?
Yeah, so it's funny, like recently I haven't done a ton of Unify content. I will have some more coming soon. I've been really getting in. So as a company, we are now a PepLink certified gold partner. So we've been working with PepLink for ages. And if you guys aren't aware of PepLink, they're They're a little bit different. It's like where you think about Ubiquiti as like a brick and mortar, like good core network, small, medium, light enterprise type of products. Peplink's niche is more of like if you are doing live streams from a sports stadium and you just need that connectivity to be rock solid, where you got multiple load balancing and bonding multiple WAN connections, Starlink plus LTE plus, a wireless ISP all bonded together to make
Oh
sure that
wow.
you've got a really cool, like solid internet connection that's like basically always on. We use Peplink for I'm under NDA, so I can't tell you what show it was, but it was a very big HBO Max show that everyone has probably heard of. They filmed it up in northern Canada, and we use Peplink as the core of that network because as they were moving around from shooting location to shooting location, they had to have they're sending dailies back to the producers on or regularly. They had COVID-19 screening locations because we had set this up for them in 2020. They had just always on connectivity, and LTE was always spotty. Starlink was brand new. It was like the big circular Gen 1 dish, and the sometimes they had like a wireless ISP they could connect to. So just the ability to have a core router that can work with all of those different types of WAN technologies and seamlessly bond them together for internet access anywhere was just a really cool. Peplink was the right answer for that particular deployment.
Huh.
So I've been actually digging pretty hard into Peplink stuff lately, doing some content on that, which will be out on the channel soon. Besides that, of course, shorts are happening on YouTube all the time. I did one where I have a fully portable setup with the Starlink Mini and Unify Express, all powered by a 27,500 milliwatt milliamp hour battery, right? And it can keep that entire setup, Starlink plus Unify, just Unify Express, but it can keep that whole setup online for about 4 hours.
Oh wow.
So that was a pretty cool little TikTok that we did recently. And beyond that, of course, we have Unify tools. If you guys don't know about the Unify tools that we provide, UI Notify has always been a big one when these products go out of stock. Like, for example, this new switch that is out of stock right now, or the one that I'm still waiting to get my hands on, the U7 Outdoor access point, right? That thing has been completely out of stock for as long as I can remember. And so UI Notify is your place to go to receive instant SMS notification when those products come into stock. And if you guys aren't aware, we also have the UI product selector. So think of it as like PC part picker for Unify devices. You pick out your gateway, your switches, your access points, and you can combine those into a single build that then you can generate a link to share that build with your friends, family, coworkers, customers, whomever, to say, hey, here's a group of Unify equipment. You can go purchase this. Here's the link. This is everything you need, kind of thing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining us on this episode. It's been really good to
Certainly.
have you on. Also, thanks again, Evan, for doing the show notes. It's a undervalued service.
Yes.
And then, as always, you can find this podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. For full description of this show and all the links, visit the episode link in the show notes. If anyone has any Ubiquiti-related questions, please email them to info@theinterface.uk, and we'll try and go through them in a future episode. Thanks for listening or watching the UI Chat podcast. If you like what we do, follow the show on all the podcast platforms and on YouTube. Give us a rating. This really does help other people find this show. Once again, thank you both for coming on the show, and we'll see you again next time.
All right. Thanks for having me.
See you.